Hello, good evening. Welcome to Cask Talk. I'm Paul. This is Dave. I am a beer drinker and enthusiast, and Dave here is a certified homebrewer and beer judge. Certified beer judge and homebrewer?
I don't think I'm certified in homebrewing. You just kind of do it.
Something. And this evening we are on for our number 2 Dunkel, because we did Dunkel last episode, and we're trying the Warsteiner Dunkel here from Germany, from the city of Warstein in part of Germany.
Yeah, so welcome to German Night. We did a Dunkelweizen previously. Now we're doing a Dunkel. Two really different beers. The Dunkel Hefeweizen is a wheat beer, or wheat has a high portion of wheat and is an ale, which is why you get that estery kind of characters from the yeast. This is a Dunkel, which is a lager, which is bottom fermenting yeast, a little bit colder fermenting, and it is a little bit cleaner. Not going to probably have as many esters, but the same kind of darkness. Dunkel meaning obviously dark, so it's a dark beer. So dark, not as in like a Schorsch beer or a stout, but dark as in more like a
like a coppery
amber type flavor or character.
So anyway, we didn't find a whole lot online about this other than the history of the brewing, which goes back to 1753. And as far as I understand, it's basically been family owned since then.
Yeah, so that would have been before we spoke American in America. So 1753, obviously before 1776. So a couple hundred years, company's been around.
Yeah. One thing is, like I said, we didn't find a whole lot on this, so I have no idea what to expect. I know it's a 4.8% alcohol by volume, and the IBU on that, the bittering units, is going to be 28.
28, yeah. So I'm assuming it's a little bit more bitter with bittering at 28 than we compare it to the really smooth Hefeweizen or Dunkelweizen that we had earlier.
Yeah, which was IBU of 14.
Yeah.
So it was half.
So I'm not expecting obviously a lot of yeasty characters, but maybe a little bit more of the caramel character from it, being that it's a Dunkel and that it's a really clean yeast, that I'm assuming that caramelness is going to come out. You might actually see some sweetness to it. When you make lagers, a lot of times you'll kind of build in some sweetness into it when you're doing the mashing of it. So you might need a little bit more bittering to kind of balance it out. I don't know how much of the hop flavor makes it into this. This is not a beer I've had before. I've had other Dunkels before, though, and been very impressed.
Yeah, we didn't find much like on the fermentables that they use, like the wheat or the barley or any of that stuff. So we're kind of a little in the dark on this one.
Yeah.
But we're hoping it turns out good. So without further ado, I say we should get some cracking.
Absolutely. So this is also obviously a German beer, and I'm a big fan of German beers. I mean, I see them really as almost kind of the father of beers. You know, I think a lot of, especially beer culture, be it Oktoberfest, the Reinheitsgebot, which is that purity law that had them really focus and really determine what is beer. And beer is going to be malt, hops, water, yeast. Anything else is not beer. And because they have that kind of heritage to it, it really kind of defines what we know as beer today.
This one is much more of like a beer smell. Not picking up any fruitiness or hoppiness or what have you. This is more like a straightforward kind of beer smelling. Like don't have a great way of describing it, but it's a smell that you would basically find universally in beer.
Another thing that I just love about German beers is the way that they get so great head retention off of them.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's a little bit moussey on the top. You know, it's got a really thick head on it. It just makes you want to drink it out of a big beer stein in some big beer hall, listening to a big polka band. You know,
I wouldn't go that far, Dave.
I mean, for me, it's great memories of being a kid, getting a chance to go out to some of these German restaurants and, well, I would say young adult drinking beer.
This has a distinct coffee flavor to it to me.
And that could be the roastedness maybe, because it's a lot of roasted malts in it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of smell. Very clean. Picking up a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of maltiness.
It is a clean, it hits, it goes. It's fairly clean beer.
Yeah, definitely some roastedness to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And surprisingly, not as sweet as I expected it to be. Well balanced though, but really leaned on that roasted character. I would almost say that, like, if you're a stout fan,
This would
It almost
probably be
has-
more your flavor.
it almost has a stouty kind of character to it with the roasted malts.
There's very little yeast flavor on this one too, because I tend to realize as much as I like hops, I like a good strong yeast characteristic, and this one has very little yeast characteristic going on.
Very little yeast characteristic. It has strong roasted notes like a stout would, where you're really just kind of tasting that roasted malt. But
Yeah.
it doesn't have the sweetness, and the sweetness is probably there. It's just balanced out with the bitterness.
Reminds me a lot of porters.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me think a lot of porters. In fact, the color and the head and everything kind of makes me lean towards this tastes like it could be a porter very easily.
Yeah, a lot of times porters are done with ales, though. The ale yeast rather than the lager yeast.
Yeah.
So because it doesn't have that yeast character to it, and it doesn't even have a lot of like that bready, biscuity kind of flavor or smell
none of
either.
that.
It's really just roasted is what
Yeah.
I'm tasting.
It's very straightforward.
Yeah.
Not a real dynamic beer as far as flavors are concerned. And
It's not bad though. I mean, it's tremendously. I mean, if you like brown ales, I think that this without the ale portion of it, this would be really very similar. You're getting a lot of roasted notes to it. It's definitely a little bit more malt forward than it is, other kind of forward standpoints. But it's not sweet, but it's not bitter at the same time. It is well balanced.
yeah, no, it's not.
But it's not
It's
hoppy
not one
either.
direction or the other.
It doesn't really have a lot of hop character to it, just enough bitterness to balance out that sweetness so that it's palatable. But I can see someone really, really liking it, mainly because it isn't overly sweet, which, a lot of beers can get that way at times, but it's not overly bitter. It's really pleasant. It's really smooth.
This is to me, this beer tastes like something they were shooting more down the middle with than trying to go big and bold in any direction. And this is a beer that will tend to appeal to people who don't have a sophisticated beer palate, which I just want to be very clear when I say this, there's nothing wrong with that. Sophisticated palates for anything can be very problematic. I'm that way with music, I'm that way with food, and I'm that way with beer. So I wish I didn't, but this is going to appeal. This is going to be like the guy who gets out once in a while and wants to try a different beer when he sees one as an opportunity, and he's going to enjoy it. This is not something that's somebody who's going to drink a lot of different flavors of beer and think this is fantastic. This is a quality product. It's got a nice mouthfeel. It's not too drying. It's got a good head. It's got a good color. It's got a respectable flavor to it. It's not really doing it for me. Is the thing.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that. I probably am not as hard on it as you are. I like that roasted character. I'm a big coffee drinker. I like stouts.
Yeah, I don't drink coffee. I don't care for it at all.
For me, it's a good character to it, but it's not, like I said, I wish it was maybe a little bit sweeter on the sweet side, because I think the sweet and roasted would carry it through a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I think it's really good. I can see some people, especially if you're a coffee drinker, if you're a stout drinker, if you like porters, brown ales, those kind of beers, this is going to be a little different from that, but it might have some good reminiscent notes of it.
You want to hit the light so we can show them what it looks like here?
Yeah, and it's not super dark. Well, I guess it is somewhat brown.
It's pretty opaque, but it's still kind of coppery.
Yeah. So you can see that that's a lot of that roasted character to it. I like using roasted in a lot of beers to really kind of bring out some of that maltiness to it, but it is one of those kind of tastes that if you're not a big roasted character or person, it may not be your palate. And I know that you look for different things out of beers a little bit different. For me, I just get fascinated and get caught up in regards to all different kinds of beers and the huge variety. And this is kind of I can bring it up like one of the huge cool things about beer is it's a recipe. It's almost like food. There's a million ways to put food together to make a meal. If beer's the meal, there's a lot of ways to be able to make it. You're not always eating the same thing every time. And that's one thing I love about beer is that you have such a huge variety. We still call it beer. It's the same ingredients, but because of where this grew or where that grew or this type of plant and this kind of plant and how much of this and how much of that, and when you put it together to make it, it's going to be different. This is definitely one that, it's surprising. It's a little bit different. I was hoping for a little more hoppiness to it.
I actually have to say that the hop levels in this is actually really good. It's not overwhelming. I don't think more hops would fix what I don't like about this beer. In fact, I think more hops would make this beer less palatable.
Really?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking more like late edition hops. Nothing that would be adding more bitterness to it, because I'd want to almost add a little bit of sweetness to it, but then add maybe a little bit of hops at the end where you taste the hops, but you're not adding any of the bitterness to it, especially if you're using something like a Hirschbrucker or Mittelfrüh, something like that really can add some really cool character to it.
Yeah, I think this might be better if it were an ale yeast instead of a lager yeast. But honestly, it's a quality product. So, and I do want to say, I have been waving my glass around like Dave, but I still get some pretty decent lacing going on still. So it's it's not bad. I think we should start scoring this here.
Yep.
And I'm going to go for presentation, to be honest. Aside from the smell being kind of lackluster, it's actually good looking. It's good head. I'm going to give it a 7 for its presentation.
Yeah, and I think that's probably pretty fair. I'm going to probably do a 7 as well. One of the things that in looking at it, it's hard to tell. It's got a little bit of clarity to it. It is a little bit darker. I like the head to it. The smell wasn't amazing. Over time, you kind of picked up a little bit more of the roastedness. I wish it had a little bit more variety to the smell.
Well, your beer was a little warmer than mine when we started too, so that might be why you're getting more aromas than I am.
Yeah.
As far as the taste characteristics are concerned, given that it's not my palate, I'll definitely say that it's not a bad product. It's by no means a bad product. Would I choose to drink this when I have other options? Probably honestly not, but in all fairness, I'm going to go with a 6.5 as far as the taste characteristics is concerned. Because we've had some other beers that were, much more lackluster that I didn't care as much for, but still it's got a good flavor. It's not overly bold. It's something that a lot of people could probably enjoy if their palate was that way.
Yeah, and I might just a little bit better on the taste. I think that I appreciate maybe the roasted barley a little bit better.
Yeah, so you like that. I don't care for that at all.
I'm going to go with a 7 on it, but I don't, I'm not saying that it's bad. I think it's great. And if you really like the roasted, this would be a really good beer on it. I think that really what's hindering me a little bit, it's just not my personal preference. So, from an overall impression standpoint, I'm probably even going to downgrade it a little bit. I'm going to say more like a 6. good, it's smooth. I'm going to drink them, I'm going to enjoy them. It does have a really cool roasted barley kind of character to it. It doesn't bother me that much, but it's, for me, it's not superly over impressive. And then on a personal preference standpoint, I'm going to probably be right in that same range, probably a 6 as well, just because I don't think that, I mean, if I had multiple beers to choose from, this might be on it, but I'm going to choose it over a lot of other beers. Though, like, I would choose a Dunkelweizen or a Hefeweizen or almost any Belgian. I can think of probably 20 to 30 beers I would choose over it, but I could also think 20, 30 beers I would choose it over them as well.
Well, from my overall impression, actually, I think as far as an objective standpoint is concerned, I think the beer is pretty good. I was kind of upset that the lackluster label didn't lead to a full flavor that I liked, because so far this is the first one to break the trend here. But I'm going to go for an overall impression. I'm actually going to give it a 6.5, even though, to be honest, Dave likes it better than I do. My personal preference, I'm going to put this beer at about a 2.5. And like I said, it just boils down to, this is not my palate. And at the end of the day, why do we drink something? Because we enjoy it.
Yeah.
And if we don't enjoy it, you don't have to drink it. Doesn't mean it's a bad product. It just means I don't care for it. And that being said, I did pay for these, and I am probably going to drink another one, and hopefully I like it better after the second one, because sometimes that happens. But, whatever.
Yeah, and I think if you've never had one before, give a try. Especially if you're a stout person, I'd love to hear your opinion in regards to what you think this is, because it would almost be like a light stout if you kind of compared it. Probably very similar in alcohol levels, but lighter in body feel and character to it.
Yeah, it does
have that roasted,
lighter mouthfeel beer, which makes it drinkable. Honestly, it is very drinkable because of the way it goes down.
Yeah, so I would love to hear your opinion in regards to what you think of it. If it's your favorite beer, is a huge variety, and just like human beings, we all have different palates and different tastes, and this may be a beer that you really, really enjoy. So we'd love to hear back in regards to that as well. So let us know. So get a chance, make some comments on it. We would love to hear your opinion on it. If you've ever had this beer or had this style before, and how well do you think that this ranks up against other Dunkels that are out there? Because this is a little bit different than other Dunkels that I've had in the past. So it's kind of surprising me to be hit with as much roastedness as was in this. But if that is your thing and you love roastedness, you might think it's a phenomenal beer, and you may be a lot higher in your personal preference on it. So we'd love to hear that. Thank you for supporting us. Please like, subscribe, share this with your friends, put it out on social media. We love whatever promotion you can give us. We'd love to hear back from you guys as well in regards to any comments that you have. Tell us what you'd like us to go ahead and review for you guys next time.
Cheers.